Sometimes, to me, it's really, really hard to grade offensive linemen, especially offensive tackles, because of the number of teams that play spread and just the fact that these guys don't play in the types of stances they would consistently at the NFL level, the lack of focus on technique and other things. It's a whole different ballgame. So to me, offensive tackles are really tough to grade because it is an awful lot of projection. Typically, interior linemen, there's not quite as much projection because you're not worried so much about the feet on the outside and their ability to hold up against speed rushers, their ability to do this. You're talking a little bit more about blocking in a phone booth, so it kind of limits your scope. So I feel like sometimes interior linemen can be a little bit easier to grade. Not always, but a little bit easier. That said, sometimes we can look at interior linemen and fall a little too in love with one or two attributes that they have and not look at the overall greater picture. Like we can fall in love with athleticism, we can fall in love with their footwork and not really pay attention to the fact that they're very raw and they need a lot of work. And yes, means they could potentially have massive upside, but we maybe need to pump the brakes on the hype train just a little bit on them. Now, I'm not saying James Daniels has a crap ton of hype. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have big-time upside, because he does. It's just, to me, as I watched him more, I was a little bit more concerned about him transitioning to the NFL level and a little less confident that a team should explore taking him at the tail end portion around number 1. Now, I look at him. He's got decent size for the position, specifically his length. He's got almost 34-inch arms, which is pretty good for an interior lineman. And with the conversion to playing center at Iowa, you would think most likely that Daniels is going to stick at center at the NFL level. He's a pretty good pass blocker as an interior lineman. Like I said, he's got decent length, and really his footwork and his overall agility and lateral athleticism, you're not really going to blow by him. You might be able to go through him. That's a different story. But he's a really good pass blocker. Like, to me right now, that's the strength of his game. And outside of, just in general, a massive amount of athleticism. Like, he is so fluid and so smooth. And I'm sure if you went back and watched any Iowa games in 2017, you saw how fluid and smooth of an athlete he was. He was graceful. He was kind of like a Baryshnikov of centers, if you will. You saw it at the combine, too. Like, he was out there yoking up his compatriots in the offensive line drills. Like, he was fooling with them. He was effing with them. He was making them look stupid. Because mama don't always make offensive linemen with feet and athleticism like this. I mean, he could do whatever you want athletically. Like, he almost has, like, tight end athleticism, it feels like, compared to some of the other people you see in the interior of the line. I mean, it's no issue for him. His movements on the field are very solid. He's very fluid. He can get there in a quickness. You know, his athleticism translates to the second level. He's just an athlete, and you can see it, you can sense it, and you know it. And on top of that, not only is he a great athlete for the position, he plays really hard. You know, the funny thing is that sometimes you look at these guys that are super athletic, they don't always play up to that athleticism. They don't always demonstrate the same level of effort as they have physical talent and upside because they don't need to. They can coast. Well, Daniels doesn't. Daniels is a scrapper. Daniels is a fighter. He looks for contact. He looks to mix it up. He consistently, I felt like, brought it in 2017 time after time after time. So you're talking about a guy with decent size for the position who's an asset as a pass blocker already with an ungodly amount of athleticism for a center and solid instincts and a really good motor. Man, that's a lot for me to work with talking about a future potential Pro Bowl NFL center. Now, that said, I think we can get a little carried away when thinking just about the upside and thinking just about the athleticism. There are real concerns with him. His strength level is not great. He did 21 bench reps at the combine, and frankly, to me, at times on film, he played more like a guy that could only do 12 or 14. That's the way he played. So to me, his combine strength was actually a little bit of a surprise because I didn't think he could put up that many times. I really didn't. He lacks upper body strength, and it shows on film consistently. He lacks the lower body strength to be able to anchor consistently. Then when you combine that lack of strength with a lack of a powerful, consistent initial hand punch, and then on top of that, he has trouble adjusting and resetting and reasserting his hands with a secondary punch. That's a concern. He does play with good natural knee bend, but the thing that bothers me sometimes about watching Daniels is not only is he not that strong and he doesn't play with a ton of physicality, is he can really get himself in trouble by getting off balance by not moving his feet. Like, you want to sit there sometimes and say, James, you can move your feet. You have ballet type of feet. Move them! And instead he just kind of reaches and lunges with his body. And if he can learn to connect this to his footsies and he can start moving his feet, he will get a whole lot better just like that. But in the meantime, it's a concern because you would think you would play up to your greatest asset, and he just really doesn't a lot. He gets too far off of his center of gravity. And then when you look at him too, he missed the 2017 opener due to a knee injury. He missed a couple of games in 2016. You wonder if he's a guy that's more of a finesse type of guy, limited in terms of what scheme he can fit, that's always going to have some type of little nagging thing here and there, and will only play maybe 75-80% of your team's games every year. To me, I see the upside with James Daniels. There's no question. I've put a second-round grade on him. I mean, this is still a pretty damn good interior line prospect. But I'm more concerned about him than the other four guys on the interior line that I've talked about so far. Like, to me, I feel like there is very little to no bust factor with any of them. Price, Hernandez, Wynn, Nelson. I feel pretty confident in that. Not so much with James Daniels. I worry a little bit that even though he plays hard, he doesn't play physically. He's not a strong guy, and I wonder just how strong he will be. He doesn't always play up to his athleticism, even though you can clearly see it on film. He needs to learn how to move his feet better. There's something about him, I'm like, man, people need to pump the brakes on him a little bit. He's a good prospect, but he's not in the category of those other four guys to me, not quite. Now, he probably gets drafted ahead of Billy Price. I think because of his athleticism, there's a chance he would still slide into the top 32 picks, be a first-round guy. If not, he probably won't have to wait long to hear his name called on day 2. And I understand it. It's just, if a Price is on the board, if a Wynn and or Hernandez is on the board, I'm taking them before I'm taking James Daniels. I'm sorry, that's just kind of the way I look at it because I just have more concerns about him. He's not as polished, and I worry about how raw he is and how much better he can actually get for the NFL level.